Hey everybody, this is Rich Brooks, and you're tuned into another one of our 30-minute webinars. And this one is all about LinkedIn. We're calling this one How to Grow Your Business with LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is one of those social media platforms that doesn't get quite the attention of something like Facebook or Instagram or even Twitter. But the bottom line is it can be a very effective tool in helping you reach a larger audience, especially in the B2B space. So today, if you've never been on one of these seminars before, I do try and get through all of the training within 30 minutes. I want you to ask questions as we go along, but I probably won't be able to answer your questions in real time. What I'm going to do is at the end of the 30 minutes or as I wrap up, I'll go and look for questions and I'll answer them there. So as we're going through it, please ask any questions you want in the questions box, and then I will go ahead and answer them when we're all done, and I'll stick on the line as long as I need to, or at least as long as I'm able to. So here at Flyte New Media, we have this format we call the Bare Essentials of Digital Marketing. And basically, this is a digital marketing plan that you can use, and there are 4 components. Bare stands for build, attract, retain, and evaluate. So build is all about how to develop a website that turns visitors into customers. Attract is all about how to drive qualified lead traffic to your website, and that usually comes down to search, social, and digital ads. Today we're going to be focusing on one aspect of social. Retain is all about how do we stay in touch with our customers after the fact, after they've left our website, and that's a lot of email marketing and retargeting. And finally, E is for evaluate, using tools like Google Analytics as well as the metrics that we get from our email service providers and our social media sites, the ones that do provide analytics, so we can make better decisions going forward. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Rich Brooks, and I'm the president of Flyte New Media. We're a web design and internet marketing company located in beautiful Portland, Maine. I'm also the founder of the Agents of Change. It's an annual digital marketing conference that takes place here in Portland, Maine in September, as well as a weekly podcast. And on it, we interview digital marketing experts from around the world on how to reach more of your ideal customers through search, social, and mobile marketing. I'm also the tech guru on 207, which is the evening news program on the NBC affiliates here in Maine. And I also wrote a book published last year called The Lead Machine, The Small Business Guide to Digital Marketing, where I go into a lot of these topics in a lot more depth. So why did you guys come today? Why are we talking about LinkedIn? LinkedIn's actually a really underrated social media platform, in my opinion. There's a lot of reasons to like LinkedIn. First of all, compared to something like Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat, it's a very small time investment for what you get out of it. I hear from a lot of people that they want to be seen as an expert, that they want some thought leadership. LinkedIn is a great place to develop that kind of thought leadership. And it's just a fantastic prospecting tool. And that's something we'll get into today as well. In fact, this is what I'd like to accomplish during today. I want to spend some time showing you how you can build and improve your profile so people will be able to find you, that they'll be attracted to you. I want to talk about how to build your network. I want to talk about how you can get seen on LinkedIn. And finally, I want to show you how to prospect and connect with other people who are on the platform. So in my opinion, it all starts with your profile. Your profile is really your tentpole here on LinkedIn. And so what you want to do is focus your attention first here. You want to make your profile as attractive as possible. Some things I want to point out is the ability to add a background image. Now, I have a free account. I've played around with a paid account, but I believe everything I'm showing you today is all part of the free account. I say believe because they keep on changing some of the rules here, but this is what I believe. The background image should be approximately 1584 by 396 pixels, which is basically a 4:1 ratio. It does seem to be a thin sliver. And as you can see, one of the things that I've done is I've overlaid some text on this, and I did this with Photoshop, but you can do it with any kind of image editing software. Because some of the things that I want to do is establish my credibility, and people are going to see this when they come visit my profile on LinkedIn. So I want to let people know that I like to speak, that I've written a book, and that I'm also a consultant on things like digital marketing and social media. And then I even put a I even write out the link to my website. Admittedly, that's not a clickable link, but still it is a call to action, if you will, to let people know where they can find more. A headshot is always great. Mine does look to the side, but generally people have ones that are looking straight out. This is a professional platform, so you should have a professional photo here. Obviously, your own brand is going to play into that, but taking a photo where your friend's arm is around your shoulder and you just crop your friend out, that's just probably not the vibe you want to give on LinkedIn. You do want to give a slightly more professional look and feel. And again, whether you're a professional speaker or you're a bank accountant, that's going to give you a different vibe in terms of what kind of story you want to tell. And your profile is really your story on LinkedIn. This is really where you're going to tell people who you are, who you can help, and who you want to connect with. Also keep in mind that your headshot is obviously round, so that may play a part in how you crop your image. Next down below, well, first of all, you're going to put your name down there, but then you're going to have what's called your headline. That's going to be up to 120 characters. What I see a lot of people doing is saying things like president or whatever, your vice president in charge of sales. What I recommend doing is using your headline instead to kind of promote yourself and the kind of things that you want to be known for. If I put president down there, all that means is that everybody who's looking to get in front of decision makers is going to start hounding me on LinkedIn. So instead, I reiterate, I'm digital marketing and social media consultant, I'm an author, and I created Flyte New Media and the Agents of Change. You need to think about what's going to be the most enticing headline for you. Then you'll see down below, you've got my current job, my college that I went to, where I am, and the size of my network. LinkedIn never shows more than 500, but I do recommend that if you're serious about marketing on LinkedIn, it generally looks good if you're showing that 500 plus. So I'd look to grow your network at least to 500. Then you've got your summary. Now your summary can be 2,000 characters, but only the first 2 lines show without clicking on show more. And again, this is a place where a lot of people just have a very boring, dry summary. And you really want to find something that's going to make you stick out. And the secret of a good about page, which this really is, except it's about you, is talking about somebody else. That's always one secret. But of course, do what makes you be you. So I purposely tried to find something that made me stick out. I don't think anybody else talks about connecting with a psychic in their first 2 lines. So, my thing says, as you can read, at a company party years ago, my boss hired a psychic who told me I needed to trust my gut more. Hopefully, that gets people to want to learn more and click on that show more. Now, as we scroll down the page, especially after somebody's clicked on show more, we can see the full profile, the full bio that I've got up there. Like I said, it can be up to 2,000 characters. There's no links. There's very little formatting. You can see that I've tried to recreate bullet points near the top by using the greater than signs, and then just put some of the things that we offer. I tried to break up as much text. People don't like reading big blocks of text, so I tried to make it with as many breaks in there, as much white space as I can get away with. Again, your formatting is very limited, but that's what you can do. Then down below that is the media section, and I'll just blow that up for you. You don't have a whole lot of control over how your media shows, but and you can't choose the order. So the first 2 things generally show, and media could be video, it could be PDFs, it could be slide decks, whatever you want to put up there. And what you're going to do, if there's something in there that you want to make sure appears in the first 2 slots, is you're probably going to have to re-upload it. So for example, I had posted the Bare Essentials of Digital Marketing, a presentation I gave. I had posted some things after that. That disappeared. So then I just went back and I re-uploaded it so it would be the number 1 option and show again. The next section down on your profile is going to be your dashboard. It is only seen by you, nobody else. So you can see who viewed your profile, how many post views you have, how many search appearances you have. And I believe this was in the last week. It's usually, I believe, the last 7 days. And then you can click on who viewed your profile as well. And by the way, I've blurred out some faces, but then I got lazy halfway through, so you're going to see some faces. Sometimes LinkedIn will blur some things for you because they want you to upgrade, but this was actually my own blurs. So I could see some of the people who were looking for me, searching for me. And if you want to turn the tables on them, you can always send them a message, say, hey, I saw you were checking me out on LinkedIn, just wondering if I could be of help in some way. And of course, you can also see how, the profile views were in the last 90 days, not in the last week. I guess I was getting ahead of myself. But this gives you an idea of how many people are checking you out. And if you scroll down that page, you'll also see a number of people who are not yet connected to you, but were checking you out. Maybe those people are worth following up with. The next section down on your profile is your articles and activity, and this is just a recap of what you've been doing, how you've been staying busy on LinkedIn. And below that is your experience. And this is a section you definitely want to spend some time on, not just with your current job, but with previous jobs as well. The more things that you put in here, the more opportunities there are for you to connect with somebody, so I really do recommend this. Also, I should have mentioned this earlier, LinkedIn has a search box. We'll talk about that later. But it really, it's looking at a number of things, including your headline, including your bio, including your experience. So if there are specific keywords that you want to be found for, whether it's HR professional, digital marketing strategist, psychic, whatever it is, you should be using those words in your job descriptions, in your job titles, all those sort of things. Make sure you're using your keywords because LinkedIn's search is not as sophisticated as Google, so you can really kind of hack it. So putting in your best keywords into your titles, job titles, descriptions, that's going to make a difference. So you can see here a few of my current and recent positions. And if I want to make a change or update any of them, there's a little edit icon over here. I click on that, and then I can change my title. The company is already logged into or connected on LinkedIn, so that's easy enough. I could add a location. And then you can give some more information as well. So again, if you're looking to put some keywords in, putting in your title is right there is a great opportunity. The next section down is skills and endorsements. Honestly, I think this is the most useless part of LinkedIn, but LinkedIn liked it for a while, even though now they've kind of de-emphasized it. But this is like people can endorse you for different skills. But since for at least a couple years, all you had to do to endorse somebody on a skill was to click on a button that LinkedIn put it above their profile. I've never put any sort of validation into this, and I don't pay a lot of attention to it. The section that I think is more valuable is the recommendation section. Recommendations is definitely a two-way street. I actually love giving recommendations. I think that's a great way. Like whenever I have a good experience with a client or a vendor or a coworker or just somebody that, our paths cross, one of the coolest, most unexpected things you can do is just leave them a nice recommendation on LinkedIn. They can always approve it before it goes live, but a lot of people, especially when they haven't asked for a recommendation, are just completely blown away. There's also a certain amount of reciprocity. I've definitely, sometimes when I go and I write a recommendation for somebody, I'm not completely surprised when I see that they've written a recommendation back to me, and that just kind of builds my visibility and builds some of the social proof that LinkedIn is so famous for. There are certain times when you might want to be more strategic about your recommendations and getting recommendations. So, for example, I decided that in this year, 2018, I wanted to get more speaking gigs. And I thought one of the ways that might be helpful is making sure that a lot of my recommendations were around my speaking prowess. So I reached out to a few people who had engaged me multiple times, and I asked if they would leave me a recommendation on LinkedIn, and they all did. So I filled up some of those that way too. But again, I think that there's as much benefit in giving a recommendation as in receiving one. What I really can't stand is when somebody I barely know asks me to write a recommendation for them on LinkedIn or endorse them for some skills because I have no idea if they're any good or not. So I will only leave recommendations or even endorse somebody for their skills based on my personal experience. Then down below, you'll see interests, which basically LinkedIn fills in for you. Now, going back to the top of the page, if you didn't see one of these sections in your own LinkedIn profile, or if you just want to add something, at the top right corner, you'll see Add Profile section. And you click on that. and you get this little window. And so basically, you can add either more work experiences if you haven't added all your previous jobs. You can add education, and you can add volunteer experience. Now, I don't have anything in volunteer experience, but according to some of my friends who are LinkedIn experts, they say this is a really important area to enter information into, so it might be worth doing. And to be honest, some of the things that I put in as my work experience were actually volunteer positions, so maybe I'll just change those out so I get some more visibility in my volunteer experience area. One other thing that I think is important for your profile is to have what's called a vanity URL. So if you click on the vanity URL link, you can see mine is, I already have a vanity URL. It's linkedin.com/in/therich.brooks. Unfortunately, you always have to have that /in/, but other than that, you can come up with any unused vanity URL, and that just makes you look a little bit more professional as opposed to rich-brooks-749-17349, the letter L. Like, that just doesn't look like you know what you're doing. So one takeaway I would definitely want you to do is make sure that you have secured a vanity URL by the end of the day. It's actually right up here. Should have pointed that out earlier. All right, what else do we have? Well, that's a lot of the stuff on the profile, so let's actually shift gears now. So once you've spent some time on really building up your profile, it's time to get out there and start networking. Networking is one of the tabs at the top of the page here, and down in the bottom left, you can see there's a connect button. So one of the things I can do is click on connect, and basically, depending on how you've done your LinkedIn, LinkedIn is going to say, look at all these people you know on LinkedIn. Do you want us to invite all of them to connect? And you absolutely do not want all of them to connect with you or you to connect with all of them. So deselect all is a good one, and then you can just go in and manually add people one by one if you actually want to be connected with them. There's actually a cooler option down here, though. Back to the previous screen. More options, which doesn't look even like a button, but it is. So click on more options, and you have this ability to sync your contacts and then pull those people into a page where you can then view them and decide if you want to add them. So if you're on Gmail, you can see that you can connect with Gmail or Yahoo, AOL, or you can upload a file. That's my personal favorite. So if you've got a CRM or a database of your contacts at your office, you can just upload that file as long as there's email attached. If you have something like Constant Contact, you can upload all your subscribers, and just LinkedIn will then tell you who is already on LinkedIn. And I wouldn't, like in the previous screen, I wouldn't say, yes, connect me with everybody. I'd go through that and I'd see who I actually want to be connected with and then build my network that way. Once I do that, I'm going to see all these people that I can potentially connect with. And what the mistake that you can make here is just click on the connect button. Unfortunately, if you click on connect, Quincy here would receive a very generic message from me that says Rich Brooks wants to connect. Quincy may have no idea who I am, or not remember that we actually went to this event and we had a good time together, or that we worked on a project together 5 years ago. So a better way is to click on the person's profile, their name, take them to the profile, and then connect from their page. I don't know why LinkedIn makes you go through this extra step, but once you do, when you click on connect here, you get this little pop-up box where you can add a note, and then you can go in there and say, hey, we worked together on this project, or, we sat on a board together, or you're my father, whatever it is, and basically add that note, and you're much more likely to get somebody to A, accept your connection, and B, not put you down as somebody unknown. Because if you reach out to too many people on LinkedIn and they say, I don't know who this person is, LinkedIn actually will penalize you and sometimes even shut down your account if you're too aggressive with it. So be careful. All right, so let's talk a little bit. So far what you've done is you've improved your profile, and then you've uploaded your database to make as many connections as possible with people you want to connect with. So once you've done those first two steps, then the next thing you want to do is you want to start interacting and being seen on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn has a news feed very similar to Facebook's, where you can see here's a few different things. Things pop up in your feed either because somebody shared it, somebody engaged with it, or perhaps it's promoted. And you can see that even though I am connected with Marcus Sheridan, Kimberly Reynolds liked this. That's one of the reasons why it appeared in my feed. The next thing is a Microsoft Office that's promoted, so that's an ad. And then somebody down below has another post as well. So that's your feed. You want to gain visibility by posting things into the feed. So at the top of the page, you can see this. One of the things you can do is you can share an article, photo, video, or idea. So you can, just like in Facebook, just start typing something out or copy and paste a URL, embed a video, whatever you want to do, and that's going to show up in the feed, potentially in front of all the people you connect with. Again, there's a algorithm in here, kind of like there is with Facebook. You have more chance of being seen here than in Facebook, but that's kind of how it works. So you can post something here. Another thing you can do is, whether on your own website or another website, if you want to share a blog post or video or whatever it is, you can just click on that LinkedIn button, and that'll bring a little pop-up box right here. And as you can see, basically they're going to give you a little information here on what somebody's going to see when you share it. And the default check here is share and update. And then you can add some additional content to it as well. And by default, it can share with the public, but you can also share it just with your contacts. And you can see there's a little button to share it to Twitter as well. Besides that, you can also take the same post either instead or additionally post it to groups or send it directly to individuals through LinkedIn, and then click on the share. Again, if you're sharing it as an update, it's going to appear in that newsfeed. Now here's an important thing that not enough people on LinkedIn are doing, and that's using the write an article option. So again, back to this box, and instead of just sharing something simple like an update, I'm going to actually share an article. I'm going to write an article. So I click on that button, and now I'm taken to this very simple CMS, very simple content management system on LinkedIn Publishing. And I can go ahead and I can create a new article, something that I'm going to share that LinkedIn will share on my behalf that will live on LinkedIn. So a lot of you may be saying, oh my God, I can't even keep up with my blog or my podcast, and social seems so overwhelming. How am I possibly going to write more articles? Well, I do think that creating content is a very good investment in your success online, but you can also repurpose content from your own website. So I generally recommend posting something to your website first and then sharing it. So I'll just show you an example of what I did here. So last week I had a podcast, and it was usually I do interviews, but this one happened to be a standalone. I was just talking. So basically you can see it's an article about how to get the most out of conferences and business events, all this information. It's got a podcast in there too. You can see the little play window. So then I basically just went over to that same screen you saw before and did a little copy and paste. I obviously kind of rushed through it because I would have chosen a different image or cropped this image differently so my head wasn't cut off, but you get the idea. It's basically the exact same article. And this is why I recommend posting it first to your website, so that when Google indexes this, which it will, it assigns the value to the first place it appeared, which is your website, and then this is the second. So I'm using this tool just to get specifically in front of my LinkedIn contacts. So not creating any more information or any new content. This took me about 4 minutes to bring over. And then I click on this little link right here, and I'm able to embed the audio. Now, unfortunately, Libsyn, which is where my audio is hosted for my podcast, can't be embedded in here. But I took my audio from the podcast, and I slapped a little image on it, and I uploaded it to our Agents of Change account on YouTube. And from there, I was able to embed it because YouTube is one of the ones. So I basically now have, with very little work, gotten in front of a whole new audience, and that now is going to be published on LinkedIn Publisher. And at the bottom of this article, I just make some links that then link out to my website. Visit the Agents of Change, subscribe to the podcast, and connect with me on LinkedIn. So those are all options that I put as call to actions at the bottom of the page. Now, I briefly just want to talk about groups. Groups used to be a really powerful networking tool that unfortunately just got overrun with spam, but there are still some good groups out there. To get to groups, they're now buried under the Work tab in the navigation, and then you can click on Groups. And you can immediately get to a different section of LinkedIn. It looks different. You can see that there's all this different information. You can click on over to My Groups, and if you manage any groups, you can see there's a group there, which I have kind of let go dormant because we don't do any more main tweet ups. The benefits of creating a group in LinkedIn is that once a week, you can email that group through LinkedIn, but it will also end up, depending on their settings, in their inbox. So that's pretty cool, powerful tool. And if you do want to spend some time building a group on LinkedIn, it may be worthwhile. And then you also see the groups that you're in. You can also click on over to the Discover tab to find groups that LinkedIn suggests for you, or you can do a search to find groups that might be relevant for you and join them to join a smaller community. Again, I think that most groups have been overrun by just marketing spam, but there are still well-run groups that might be worth your time and effort. And then inside groups, they were kind of like just a quiet section of LinkedIn where you can join in conversations or post something new. One of the more powerful aspects of LinkedIn is prospecting. So here's how I do it. You can see on the home page, on many pages, there's a search box at LinkedIn. And if you click in it, you can type right away, but you can click in it, you can see some of the different options that you can search for people, jobs, or posts, and you can also see your recent posts. Recent searches. But I'm going to type in social media manager because as the founder of the Agents of Change, I want to get in front of social media managers who might be interested in attending my conference. And I can see that there are social media manager jobs and there are people with that title. And then there's other options down below, companies, schools, and so forth, and groups. So if I choose people, I find 360,000 people on LinkedIn who are social media managers. That's pretty awesome. But maybe that's just too big a group. My conference is local, so I click on locations and I narrow it down just to the 3 areas in Maine that LinkedIn identifies, and I apply that filter, and now I'm down to 454 social media managers who are here in Maine. Very powerful tool, and that gives me the opportunity of really reaching out to them either one-to-one or doing LinkedIn ads if I choose to, however I want to connect with them and invite them to the Agents of Change conference. There's also this All Filters button up here. As you can see, you can search for people. Maybe you just want to get into FedEx. So you could search for people in the company FedEx, maybe with a specific title. Or maybe you're looking for HR managers because that's who you're selling to. So you could just leave everything blank and just search on HR managers. And you already saw that we can also narrow this audience down by location or current company. And also how connected are they to us? Do we want to search for people we're already connected to? Or do we want to search for people that are maybe just outside of our reach and then we try and figure out how we're going to connect with them afterwards? And then also Messenger. This is probably one of my favorite tools within LinkedIn because as I'm connecting with these people, as I find them, I try and connect with them also on Messenger, which is basically just like Facebook Messenger except on LinkedIn. And here on this tab, I can see all the different people that I've had some sort of connection with on LinkedIn Messenger. And I can either, by clicking on the little icon button next to messaging, I can start a new message, but I can also head on over to their individual page and message them from that page as well. Click on that and all of a sudden I'm starting a conversation with Travinia. And I just want to mention company pages because I often get a lot of questions about them. Company pages have just, in my opinion, been overlooked by LinkedIn. For most small businesses, they're just not that potent. We use ours. We basically, when we're sharing something new, like in this screen capture, you can see when we were doing our 30-minute webinar in Google Analytics, we posted that to our LinkedIn page because people are following it. I just don't think that there's a whole lot of interaction here. Now, if you're a bigger company or you've got a lot of recruiting going on, then I think your LinkedIn page means a lot more. Or if you're a media company, I also think that then there's a lot of value. But I see LinkedIn more about individuals than I do about companies, so I don't spend a lot of time on my company page except just to do the updates, the same kind of social media updates that we post to our Facebook page or Twitter account. Now, all of today's screen grabs have come from the desktop, but I do want to mention that the mobile experience on LinkedIn is pretty slick. When you first get into your LinkedIn account, you'll immediately see the news feed that you can scroll through. You can also check your network, make connections, add people. You can add your contacts from your phone very easily. Then you see people you may know. You see all your invitations. And the messaging tool is really slick here too. It's just like Facebook Messenger, so you can just connect. All those messages are over here as well. And then your notifications, so you can see what kind of activity is going on in your network and maybe something that you want to pile on or check out. Now, I know we can go much deeper, but I did want to try and keep it to the 30 minutes. So what do I want you to walk away with today? You need to invest in some time in building an attractive profile. And by attractive, I just mean to literally attract other people to it. Think about the words that you're using in your titles and headers and job descriptions, because those all feature into that LinkedIn search. Upload your database so that you can quickly make connections and find your regular connections and connect with them on LinkedIn. In fact, one thing I often do is if I do have a new prospect and I've sent out a proposal or we've had an initial conversation, is I find that person on LinkedIn and I just connect with them there, and it just adds one more level of connectivity we have. Get seen on LinkedIn by posting updates and articles. And then prospect with the search and filters tool that LinkedIn provides for you. Depending on your job requirements, this can be an incredibly powerful tool for getting in touch with potential partners, donors, volunteers, and of course, customers and clients. And lastly, don't overlook Messenger. Messenger is an amazing tool to connect with people, and the default setting for Messenger is it's also going to send emails to people's inbox, their actual email inbox. So be aware of that. It's a great way of getting that deeper connection and taking the conversation outside of LinkedIn as well. That's the content I wanted to cover today. If you did have any questions, hopefully you put them into the questions box. And if you didn't, but you have a question right now, go ahead, pose it in the questions box, and I will follow up with you, or I'll answer the questions right now. And I'll just let you know that I'm sending out an email either later today or tomorrow with the links to the on-demand content so you can watch this again. And we always also add just the slide deck if you want to go through that, as well as the audio file. So if you want to put that on your iPod or iPhone and listen to it in the car, you can totally do that as well. So I'll open up the questions. Again, if you do have questions, please feel free to ask them now. Do I feel that Sales Navigator is worth the money? Jeremy, great question. My feeling for any of the paid LinkedIn tools is the same. LinkedIn itself is an incredibly powerful social media tool, and the average user won't need anything more. The exceptions to that rule are headhunters and executive directors for membership organizations. There are some benefits to some of those Sales Navigator and other premium tools that allow you to connect with people that you don't have that you otherwise don't have a connection to, send messages to them, more search features and things like that. But I would say go for as long as you can on the free version. I've played with the paid version. I'm an active user, and I've yet to find a reason to stay on the paid version. That's my takeaway from the Sales Manager. Can you see the people who viewed you without the upgrade on LinkedIn? You can see some of the people, PJ, but not all the people. I find that when I log in and I do click on that link to see who's viewed me, I don't know the exact number, but there is a cutoff point where they'll say something like, you can see more, or they'll tease you with something like somebody from IDEX or somebody from UPS was looking at your profile, upgrade to Sales Navigator to see who that was. So there will be people who are hidden, but again, you have to decide if that upgrade is worth it to you. Samantha, the presentation, as I just mentioned, is recorded. It's being recorded right now, and when we're all done, it might take a day or so, but I'll get the link out to you with the recording, and then you can share it however you see fit. Can you write an article on a company page? If so, where's the link? I don't know if you can. That's a great question. I'll have to take. While we're doing this, why don't I just see if I can do that? I'm just going to go to our LinkedIn page, see if I can find that link for you. I don't know if it exists. If we can't find it, what I would recommend is having an individual write it for you, and then the company would share it. I think that since they're looking for people to write these articles, that you're not going to. Yeah. Well, it says, yeah, so this is no. Yeah, so this is no. So, no, you can only post things that have already been created here, or just write something briefly. You're not going to have those same tools. This also brings up something that I forgot to mention, is that you can tag people in a lot of these posts. So if you do want somebody to get a little bit more visibility, do that. So when I interview somebody, like today, my podcast had an interview with Brian Fanzo. When I share that, I'm going to tag Brian Fanzo in this tag so that more people are going to see it. You spoke about writing an article on repurposing a blog in that spot. What's the difference between writing an article or just posting a snippet and a link back to your website? What are the benefits of the article approach? I think they're two perfectly fine ways to go. I think that LinkedIn wants to reward you for writing an article, whether it's a new article or not. They don't seem to care. So I would play around with both. Just have a call to action in the LinkedIn article so that there's a link back to your website. But in the same way that sometimes when people are in Facebook, they don't want to leave Facebook, you could argue the same is true in LinkedIn. Like, I don't want to leave LinkedIn to read that article, so I might be less interested. Or if I click on a link and suddenly I'm taken to a website when I wanted to finish up my LinkedIn work, I might click back and lose it forever. So for me, the perfect way to do this would be is I launch the blog or the podcast on my own website. I go to LinkedIn, and over the next few days, I share that link a number of times. And then maybe 2 weeks later, I go into LinkedIn and I basically repurpose the article within LinkedIn, and then I share it that way. So that's probably the way that I would do it to get as much visibility as possible. Thanks for the question, Chelsea. Andrew asks, in prospecting, is there a way to avoid LinkedIn's monthly limit without a paid account? Thanks. There are limits on the free account, and no, I don't think that there would be a way to do that. But what exactly are you bumping your head against, Andrew? Because they do change the rules quite often. I know that you are limited to like the number of searches that you can save, and I think actually right now you can't even save any more searches. That seemed to be gone when I was putting together my slide deck. But there are some limits, and I think the only way to get around that is with a paid account. But let me know in a follow-up question what exactly you're being limited on. I'll see if I can answer that for you. How can you use LinkedIn for online advertising? I actually am having an upcoming podcast where I'm interviewing somebody who's a LinkedIn ads expert, because I've had no luck with this. And I tend to think that the people who are successful with LinkedIn ads are people who have too much money to throw at advertising. We've tried it a couple times with different clients with very poor ROI, and I just don't see it as a valuable tool. I would rather advertise on Facebook, even though it may not be a perfect thing for B2B. I'd come up with different ways to drive traffic to my website, use a Facebook pixel, and then repixel people on Facebook who had visited my website. But there are online advertising choices on LinkedIn if you want to play around with them, and you can target people based on their job title or whatever else, and then just make your ads will appear in front of them. And you can see, though, my experience with LinkedIn ads as a consumer is they tend to be big companies. You know, they tend to be UPS and Microsoft and other large companies that have a much bigger advertising budget than Flyte New Media or a lot of our clients. Michelle, just giving me thanks. You're welcome, Michelle. I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation. Frank asks, what's your opinion of using LinkedIn ads? I'm attracted to it because it allows such fine-scale targeting, but the little I've spent on it so far has not brought in any business. So, Frank, that's been our experience too. It seems great in theory, and obviously people are using it, but it does tend to be these bigger corporations. It may just be that the ROI is only there if you're selling something that has an extremely high markup. That's all I can think of. PJ asks, is there a way to discontinue seeing every notice on LinkedIn into my inbox? It drives me nuts. Yes, at the bottom of every one of those emails, there should be a link that will let you change your settings, and you can decide what. For example, very few of my groups are allowed to send me emails anymore. There's only like 2 or 3 that send me the weekly email just because it became too much. You can set it so that LinkedIn doesn't send you any emails, but there are emails that I think are valuable. In Messenger, I've gotten a few speaking gigs from people who just reached out to me, and thankfully I pay more attention now because a few of those leads had gone cold because I wasn't paying enough attention to the stuff that was coming in through Messenger. And now, some of those paydays have been pretty big, so I like to pay attention to them. But there are some tools within, if you click on the bottom of those. One thing I can't stand in LinkedIn is when you have a work anniversary and literally like 200 to 300 people congratulate you on it. It fills up my Messenger thing. They all have the same message because all LinkedIn says is congratulate Rich on his work anniversary. And people click on the link and they don't even get a chance to leave a personal message. It just sends me a message that says congrats on your work anniversary. I don't even know what my work anniversary is. So then I have to go and figure it out. And it's just, I find that to be pointless. And if there was one alert I would turn off, it would be that one. However, there is actually a way to turn off that alert if it bothers you as much as it bothers me. Earlier on, there was a screen where I showed your job description and everything in the edit field, and there is a switch there, a toggle where you can say, by default it's on, say let people know of any changes to my job and my anniversary. If you shut that off, they won't know it. Now, I like to keep my anniversary notification on because it increases my visibility because LinkedIn keeps on telling you like, hey, it's Rich's work anniversary at Flyte New Media or Agents of Change or Social Media Marketing World or whatever it would be. But then they click on the link. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, and that's why I keep it on because it does greatly increase my visibility. Jonathan, you're welcome. Appreciate you saying those kind words. Catherine asks, how do you recommend opening up a conversation in an invitation with someone you don't know on LinkedIn? So LinkedIn does penalize you if you have too many people who say, I don't know who this is. I've actually gotten that alert before. So I would probably, depending on why you want to get in touch with that person, is just tell them why. Say, hey, listen, I don't know, you don't know who I am, but I've been following your blog for years, or you don't know who I am, but I've always seen your sign and I've always wanted to connect with your business for the reasons X, Y, and Z. So tell them what you want to get out of it, but maybe a better way of looking at it is tell them what connecting with you might be, why it might be valuable to them. And if you don't want to do that, you can find somebody in between you and say, would you connect us? So I'll sometimes get something, Catherine might see that she wants to connect with Brian, but Catherine's not connected to Brian. She's 2 degrees away, but she sees that both Brian and I, or that I am connected to both she and Brian. There's a process on LinkedIn where you can say, Rich, would you make an introduction for me? And in that case, I can turn to Brian and I can say, Catherine is very cool. You should get to know her. She wants to meet with you. And then basically, if Brian accepts, then he will become connected or start a conversation with Catherine. So that's another way you can go about it. Anne says, well done. Keep me on your list. Oh, Anne, don't worry. Only you can take yourself off our list. PJ, you're welcome. Alan says, LinkedIn recently, like today, updated their policy against automation tools. Do I use any automation tools? I do. His name is Preston. He works in my office. I don't use any bots. I shouldn't say in social media because I use things like Hootsuite and TweetDeck and Facebook Schedule occasionally. On LinkedIn, I don't use any bots, but I have to admit that as president of the company, I just have to delegate stuff. And so one of Preston's jobs is to log into my account as me and basically respond to all of the requests that I get to connect. And I've got certain parameters set up on who I'll accept an invitation from that he's familiar with. And he has a canned response from me. And I'll tell you what it is. It's like, hey, thanks for reaching out, Alan. What's up? which is great because that's the exact thing I would say to somebody whether I knew them or I didn't know them, because I don't want it to make it sound like my best friend, or if my mom wants to connect with me that I don't know who it is. It's kind of a slightly more middle of the road response. And then if somebody responds back to me, then I get the message and then I have a conversation with them. But I get sometimes 100 requests in a week. I just can't keep up with that and everything else. So I do that. And also, when we're promoting our new webinars, when we're promoting different things like the podcasts, I just have somebody on my team promoting that, although that's not actually done through my account, so that's not the same thing. But I would say accepting invitations, and sometimes when I'm trying to do a big outreach to people I've already connected with through Messenger, I might have Preston go in on my behalf and do that for me. And that's pretty common for people who are really active on LinkedIn. In fact, all of my LinkedIn expert friends, they all have virtual assistants, VAs, who do this for them. Marie, you're welcome. Terry, it says your photo visibility doesn't align with public profile. Do I know what that means? I've never heard that. Doesn't align with public profile. No, I would Google that phrase exactly and see if there's some response to that. Oh, you can only see it maybe up to 3 connections away. So you might be trying to reach somebody who is more than 3 connections away. I'm not entirely sure. Andrew asks, what are my thoughts of paid ads targeting specific titles and or sponsored content? Again, my experience has been it works better for big brands than it does for small businesses. But, if you've got some money to play with, one of my favorite things to tell people is best practices are not necessarily, do not equal best results. So just because I tell you something didn't work for me or a few of my clients, doesn't mean you shouldn't play around with it. If you've got a fine target on exactly the job title you want to go after, throw $50, $100, $500 behind it and see if you get any sort of response. Make sure you carefully track those leads though. I would recommend that if you're sending somebody to say download a white paper, if that's what you're selling them, make sure you're using the UTM codes to really track that behavior. And if you're not sure what UTM codes are, check out my 30-minute online training on Google Analytics because I go into it there. Wes asks, when building my network, most of these are cold calls. What do you recommend to keep the dialogue from them sounding just like another spam ad? It's almost impossible, is really what I would say. Wes, it's probably going to take you longer to get going. I would maybe find out where these people hang out on LinkedIn, probably in certain groups. I would join the groups and I would not try and sell them anything. I would just try and answer every question that comes up. I try and share things, not necessarily from my own website. I would want to look like the most helpful human being on the planet, both in groups as well as in the news feed. And then I would just try and connect with people. And I'd say, I don't know who you're targeting, but let's say it's shop owners. You find the shop owners on, and you may say, hey, listen, I love connecting with shop owners and understand what's going on with you. I'd love to connect with you here. And just leave it like that. And don't, in 30 seconds after they accept your invitation, run back to them and say, hey, I've got this great plan that's going to help bring down your overall cost and inventory. Like, I just get so sick and tired of people who think that because I've accepted an invitation, that suddenly I want to do all this business with them. Take it slowly, date by date. It takes longer, but it pays off 1,000 times better. Wes also asks, how do you build a company page? Where is that? So if, like for Flyte New Media, a lot of times the companies may already be in there because they buy databases of companies. So you can go in and claim the company, and then you can just create a company and enter in information. Let me see if I can quickly find that. If not, I'll find you a link on that. Work. I may need to get you some information. Yeah. I will make a note to try and follow up with this, see if I can find the link to where you can create a new company. Just try this one more time. Learning, posted jobs, advertise groups, profile and salary, SlideShare. Oh, here it is. Create a company page. There you go. Under work, Scroll down to create a company page, and then I'm sure it just walks you through the process of all the things that you want to put in there. Chelsea, you're welcome. Sheila says, you say LinkedIn is good for B2B, but is more individual focused. If you're tasked with increasing your company's presence on LinkedIn, but you work in the marketing department and are not the person your company's customers interact with, is your task then to get those who are interacting with your company's customers to ramp up their LinkedIn presence? Sheila, you've hit the nail on the head. I do think that you should have your own account on LinkedIn and be promoting what your company is doing. Like, so, when Flyte New Media has a new blog post or Agents of Change has a new podcast, I'm going to go in there and promote it. Now, admittedly, it's probably because I wrote it or I'm the host of the podcast, but I do it anyways. On top of that, I would have a meeting with all of the customer service reps and all of the sales reps, and I would basically just show them something like this. How do you use LinkedIn? And then also why it's in their best interest to be on LinkedIn. A lot of salespeople I've talked to never realize what a great prospecting tool LinkedIn is. They just think, they don't know much about it, and they think it's basically a place to post your resume, so they don't even want their boss to know they're on LinkedIn. I would basically get people to rethink their approach to LinkedIn because it's going to be good for them and good for their company. And if you want to talk to me after this broadcast about the kind of in-house training I do on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to talk to you about that too. Terry, you're questioning the visibility setting choices. Yeah, there are limits. If you're more than 3 degrees away from somebody, I think they're kind of invisible to you, so you'll have to find some nearer connections and work your way up the ladder. Andrew says, when I'm drilling down into a company or category, such as UPS employee recruiting managers, I can quickly hit the monthly limit. I hadn't done that, so yeah, I think what you're seeing there is that's more of a hardcore recruiting tool or prospecting tool, and LinkedIn's like, yeah, if you want that kind of data, you are going to have to pay for it. I apologize, I hadn't run into that before, Andrew. Wes, you're welcome for the information. Frank, you are very welcome. I'm glad it was so helpful. I know you can't hear laughter on webinars, so for your information, You Are My Father was funny. Excellent. It is true. Like podcasts and webinars, really tough to get real-time interaction. In fact, I always say this in my presentations. Webinars are social media, but I agree. I can't hear you and I can't see you, but at least you guys can leave questions for me. Mac, you're totally welcome. I'm glad I was so enthusiastic and helpful. Frank, you already found it ahead of me. You're welcome. Got it. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. I think we've reached the bottom of the questions. Great questions, everybody. Appreciate your time. As I mentioned before, I will be sending out an email in the next 24 hours with a link to the on-demand content, along with all the other goodies. We've also got another webinar. Our next 30-minute webinar is going to be on blogging. I'm pretty excited about this one. I love blogging. And I will send out, I'll include a link to where you can register for that one in the follow-up email for today's webinar. Everybody just have an awesome day, and if you've got a storm bearing down on you, stay warm.